Hey guys, hopefully you guys are doing well. I know you guys are getting ready for your test, and you're probably a little scared, a little nervous, and that's okay. I just wanted to make this video. I know some of you guys are on the West Coast and preparing and whatnot. I get a lot of questions, and what's going to be on the test. You guys know there's going to be 6 questions. Um, rate accumulation, the fundamental theorem of calculus. You're going to make sure you're going to get that, okay? That's when you have something goes in, something's probably going to come out, something to that effect, and they're going to ask you at what point is there a maximum, or what point is there a minimum. So you want to make sure that you understand what to look for. All right, B3AT. I'm glad the videos are helping you guys. Sometimes I started in COVID, and I just didn't know, well, let me just for my students, and it caught on, and I'm glad. So if it can help you guys, I'm glad. So rate accumulation, you're gonna get that. You're gonna get that for sure. All right. Remember, make sure when they're asking you for the maximum, right? The absolute maximum, you got to check the endpoints. But rate accumulation, you'll definitely get it. The other one that you'll get is graph analysis. So as soon as you see a graph, automatically you start thinking, okay, they're going to ask me max min, they're going to ask me point of inflection, they're going to ask me to find maybe a certain value, okay? Those things like that. And I covered in the other videos, but graph analysis, you will definitely get it, okay? Let me see here. And I don't want to take too much time because I know you guys are studying. But if you guys can just fine tune your focus into what to look for, it's going to help you out a lot, okay? So you're going to have a rate accumulation, a graph analysis every single year. And I think I've shown it on the on one of the videos where I showed you guys the Excel spreadsheet. It always comes up, okay? And with the graph analysis, you're going to see the fundamental theorem of calculus, okay? So make sure you guys know that. The other thing too is 30%, and I don't know if you guys know this, but 30% of the entire test, multiple choice, is integrals. So a third of the test is knowing how to integrate your U substitution and all that good stuff. So make sure you know that. Table questions every year. Let's see, I think for the last few years, yeah, they've had a table question 2022, 2021, 2019, 2018, 2017. So when I see a table question, automatically I'm thinking, okay, Riemann sum, trapezoidal rule, left hand, right hand sum. They're gonna ask you to find the rate between 2 points, right? They're gonna ask you, is it an overestimate? Is it an underestimate? All right. The average value always comes up with table questions, and also with graph analysis as well. All right, guys. Particle motion. In particle motion, they're going to ask you, total distance. And remember, total distance is when you take the absolute value, okay? You take the absolute value. They're going to ask you when it changes direction. Okay, for sure they'll ask you when you change direction. When it goes farthest left, farthest right. Think when it changes direction, remember what happens when you change direction. While you slow down to 0, you change direction. So velocity has to be set equal to 0, and then that's when you kind of figure out what you're doing with it. The critical point. All right, guys. So rate accumulation, you're going to get that. Make sure you understand what rate accumulation is. Something comes in, something goes out. They're going to ask you for a maximum, a minimum probably. Okay, graph analysis, they're going to give you a graph. As soon as you see a graph, you start thinking, okay, point of inflection, max min. they're probably going to ask you for a specific value. All right. If you see a table, start thinking, okay, they're going to ask me Riemann sum, left hand, right hand. They're going to ask me for the rate of change between certain values. Okay. The ones that are kind of the oddball are differential equations. Those sometimes they come up every year, sometimes they don't. Last year, 2022, it did come up. In 2021, they had a differential equation and they had a slope field. So, this year, I don't know. Hopefully, they just keep it easy. For differential equations, you can also take a look at the video, but hopefully they give you one where you have to draw the slope field, because those are pretty easy. And you're going to have to find the particular solution. Okay, so you're going to have to work your way backwards, right? Put the y's on one side and integrate and do all that good stuff. The tangent line, they're going to ask you for the tangent line. Let's see. And the only other thing is, if they ask you for the second derivative, make sure you use the first derivative in the original equation. All right. And then area and volume. Area and volume, I don't know. Area and volume, it's also sometimes it's an oddball. Area and volume, you see last year in 2022, they gave you an area volume. 2021, they also gave you an area volume. 2020, I just didn't put that information in there just because they just kind of threw all a bunch of smorgasbord together, and I don't think they released the questions for that year. But I would just be ready for it. Now, it was interesting. Last year, the area volume was the second question. The year before, it was a third question. Now, one thing I've noticed over the years, usually the first question is a rate accumulation. Question number 3 is a graph analysis, meaning that you're going to have to do it by hand. So questions 1 and 2 are your calculator questions. So, just keep that in mind. And for anybody doing BC, your Taylor series, question 6, that's a given. Hey, Dahlia, yeah, you're welcome. Absolutely. I'm glad. And guys, just help each other out. Let me see. Yeah, guys. Particular solution, I don't know, Eli. It's I was looking at the pattern. Well, if you get a differential equation, for sure. I mean, in 2021 you had it. In 2022 you had it. They had it in 2015, 2016, 2017. They had a 2018. They had it. 2019 they didn't. 2020 I can't remember. And then 2021, 2022. You know what? I'm gonna take a wild guess, and I'm gonna say, yeah, they are gonna have it. A differential equation. And if you see differential equation, you got to think particular solution. Okay, they're gonna have it. Okay. From unit 10. And thank you guys so much for answering each other's questions, because there's a lot of questions. When is the shell method used over the disc and washer? Well, Jojo, the shell method, usually we use it when you're going around the y-axis, right? And the parameters are changed. I wish I could show you visually. You're gonna have to look at the graph, because sometimes, with the washer, you have that gap. And with the shell method, you're not gonna have that gap in the middle. So you're just able to, with respect to y, use it, or with respect to x as well. I don't know if that makes sense. But honestly, to be honest with you, looking at the test, I haven't seen, you can use a shell method, but a lot of the way the questions are solved are using the disc or the washer method. You can still solve it that way. So if you know the disc and the washer method, you should be okay. Make sure, yeah, Elon, make the mean value theorem. That one comes up a lot. Intermediate, yes. A good part. I mean, it's just hard to say, but they will ask you, does it satisfy the mean value theorem or the intermediate value theorem? I've seen that question. No, this year I was gonna grade AP exams, but I'm doing something with my summer school, and it just interfered with the dates, so I won't be grading AP exams. Very good, Moot. Yeah, thank you. And guys, when you're studying, I know everybody wants to study everything. Fine tune your focus. If you look at the videos, I try to break it down into like what if you look at the patterns, what do they look for? What are they asking for? And focus on those things, and you'll get the majority of the points. The one thing I will say too, let's see, like I think it was a graph analysis question. I didn't get to make a video about it, but they threw in product rule, quotient rule, and they threw in L'Hopital into a graph analysis question. It was kind of weird. I don't know what year that was, but so they kind of throw that into the mix. So just be ready for that. They'll give you like, for example, like H of Q equals P of Q plus Q plus, let me see, P of Q plus Q, I'm sorry, P of X plus Q of X, and then they'll ask you to find the derivative or find, something else, the quotient. So just make sure, and if you guys, the majority of students know that, so if you guys been prepared, it should be no problem. But I have seen that. Yeah. Now the thing with the area, with the volume, guys, just remember you're going from the axis of rotation, and think about it as distance. Okay, just from the axis of rotation, just draw your line. Boom. Okay, and then but my other videos go over that a little bit more because I go through examples from the AP questions. What is a rate accumulation? Remember, they gave you something's coming in. The rate of vehicles at the toll plaza is this much, and then they're asking you at what time is it the maximum, or sometimes they'll have you, the amount of fish that are going into the lake is this much, the amount of fish that are going out of the lake is this much, right? So you have to integrate what's going in minus what's going out. So that's what rate accumulation is. Yeah. Okay. So, and if you guys go through the videos, it'll help you just get to kind of fine tune it. So rate accumulation, number one. Graph analysis, number two. Make sure you guys know those table questions, number three. Those are my top three. Then I would go particle motion, right? Particle motion, when is it going left? When is it going right? When does it change direction? Things like that. For BC, I mean, Taylor, they're going to ask you for sure. Now for BC, they're going to give you the rate accumulation. They're going to give you the graph analysis, typically the same one that they give AB. Let's see, the Taylor series is going to be different for BC, and then either a polar or a parametric, okay? And then they might give you a series question. For polar, for polar guys, it's just, they're going to ask you for the area right off the bat. They'll probably ask you for the, let's see what else. Arc length. Basic questions. I can't think of them off the top of my head right now, but go check out some of the videos. And for BC, I wasn't able to do as many as I would like to. I did more AB, and I'm sorry. I just get so busy sometimes. Let's see here. And guys, I know there's a lot of questions. I'm trying to get to all of them. I'm so glad the videos have helped you guys. Should you memorize the derivatives and integrals of trig inverse? Yes, the basic ones. You know, sine, cosine, tangent. I think you'll see at least one of those on the multiple choice, and those are multiple choice questions. Integrals, you're going to see u substitution. You're going to see the basic integrals. Now remember, the questions are designed to be done in 2.5 minutes. Okay, so there you got to look at it and analyze. Okay, this is what it is. All right. How often do you see disc and washer technique? If you see a graph area volume, they're gonna ask you for that. They're gonna ask you part A. They're probably gonna ask you for the area. Part B, they're gonna ask you probably for it's being rotated about the x-axis or the y-axis. Part C or D, they're probably gonna ask you the cross sections are squares or the cross sections are semicircles. You know, something to that regard. Related rates and optimization, no, they are not common on the FRQ. No, they're not. You'll probably see a related rate on the multiple choice, but not FRQ for sure. Optimization, I haven't seen optimization. I don't think I've ever seen optimization as an offer FRQ. Hey Chips, I wish I could, man. I wish I could do a polar FRQ right now, but I just don't have the resources. And I wish I had like a little whiteboard behind me or something. I'm so glad the videos, but you know what? The best thing I can do, guys, is those videos. As long as those videos are there, the polar, they're gonna ask you the same thing: area, you know, just arc length. I can't remember all the other things. I'm sorry, it's just so much. Euler, is it common on the FRQ? Or Euler? Yes. Well, let's see. I have seen it for BC. Yeah, I have seen it. So make sure you do know Euler's method. Yeah, because they'll ask you, they'll give you the function, and they'll ask you to find f of 2.1 using this many steps. So Euler, yes, I've seen it. Taylor series, tips for Taylor series. It depends if they give you the power series. If you see a power series, think, okay, they're gonna ask me for the first 4 terms or 5 terms. They're gonna ask me for the error bound. They're gonna ask me for the radius of convergence, interval convergence, all that good stuff. Make sure you check the endpoints as well. Analytic work questions. You think, are you talking about, Ronnie, the graph analysis questions? Logistic growth, I've never seen an FRQ on logistic growth. Gosh, let me see. You will see, I think, a multiple choice on logistic growth. You just have to be able to recognize it. You'll probably see 1, maybe 2. You know, but make sure you're able to recognize, oh, that's logistic growth, and you'll be fine. Area under the curve. The washer method. The washer method is just, you know, the outer radius minus the inner radius, Q, and just make sure when you're doing area volume, you draw it, you draw your line from the axis of rotation. So you go to the outer minus the inner, and that could be underneath the x-axis or above it. So I would just say make sure you take a look at those videos because I go into more detail doing them and I just take my time. Um, yeah, analytic. I think Ronnie, you're talking about graph analysis, and graph analysis. You're gonna get a graph to analyze. I don't know if you're talking about that, but whenever you see a graph analysis question, whenever I see a graph, I'm thinking, okay, they're gonna ask for a maximum, they're gonna ask for a minimum, they're gonna ask for point of inflection. Okay, they're gonna ask. Let's see what else they ask. They're gonna probably they're gonna test you on the fundamental theorem. So they're gonna ask you find f of whatever 4, right? And they're gonna give you an initial condition. So you're gonna have to use the initial condition to find that value and use the fundamental theorem. Ultimate Luigi, the polar graphs, they're gonna ask you for area. They're probably gonna ask you for arc length. Off the top of my head, I think I've made a video on doing a polar. If you can find it, it should be there with the others. And I go through them, and they basically ask the same thing with those. I just don't remember. I know they're gonna ask you for the area. Make sure you don't forget the 1/2. Let's see. Let's see. Revolving about specific line. Zippy. Well, the thing about revolving about a specific line, make sure it's from that axis of rotation, you draw your radius. That's how you should start it off. But one of the videos that I do on area volume should explain all that. Eli, the coefficient for volumes. Coefficient for volumes. Tulip, I'm sorry, I don't understand that question. Eli, for polar question, how can you tell whether to trace two if it has inner loop or two different shapes? Well, you're just gonna have to find it, and remember, you think about radians when you're tracing it. Okay, I think I did a polar recently, and it goes from the origin, it goes up, and it comes back to 90 degrees, and you have to read it as pi over 2. But I wish I could do a polar in here right now. I just don't have the time. I'm so sorry. The main focus is for the videos is for, right now to kind of fine tune your focus. But if you want to do the polar, I think that there's a video on polar. Go ahead and look at that. I just don't know. I just didn't have enough time to do all of them, guys. I'm sorry. Yeah, 2021 had a polar. Let me see. Let's see. Last year, 2022, there was, for BC, there was a particle motion, parametric. For 2021, there was a particle motion, parametric. There wasn't a polar. Okay, so let's see, there was a polar until 2019. There was a polar in 2018. There was a polar in 2017. And let's see, 2016, no, okay. So 2017 polar, 2018 polar, 2019 polar, 2021 they didn't, 2022 they did not. So I think 2023, I think you should be ready for a polar in BC. Because 2021, 2022 they had parametric, particle motion parametric. And in the past 10 years, since 2010, they've had particle motion, the parametric, and then they go polar back to back, and then parametric back to back, and then they did a polar, and then they did a parametric, then they did a polar. So right now, the last 2 years, they've done particle motion. So I'm thinking this year, yeah, I would think, just based on the pattern, that I think they'll probably give a polar. Yeah, good eye, guys. I didn't even think about that, but that's good. Integral of arc sine inverse. Oh, I see what you're saying, Monkey. Yeah, those basic ones. So arc sine, arc tangent, arc cosine. Yes, you'll probably get a multiple choice on that. At least one. At least one. Yeah, you're due for a polar. Yeah, I'm sorry, guys. I know. Yeah. And guys, the good thing about our community too, there's so many resources out there, videos. You guys, help each other out. Somebody was mentioning organic chemistry tutor, calculus 2. I mean, that's great. And I just wish I had time to make more videos. I just don't. Um, Mean value theorem, intermediate value theorem, uh, mean value theorem, yes. Intermediate value theorem, yes. Those come up enough times with graph analysis questions. Make sure you understand what they mean. What problems are the ones where it uses circles and triangles to determine something under the curve? Those are called graph analysis. They give you a picture of a graph, and you have, line segments or semicircles. Washer method, yes. Make sure you know the washer method for the FRQ. Yep. Yeah. Rayan, very good. Yeah. Um, Series, yeah. Make sure. Yeah, I mean, that's the difference between AB and BC, right? The series, all those series tests. Now for series, you're gonna get that Taylor series or the Maclaurin. Are you either gonna get a power series, or they're gonna give you the series as sigma? And just make sure that you know how to find the interval convergence, the ratio test, the error bound. That's given. Kermit, I'm glad, man. I'm glad. Intermediate value theorem, not so much. It's not too hard, Zerks. The integral test. Let me see. I know I've seen the limit comparison test. The integral. I don't know. I don't know, Kevin. Rolle's theorem on the AB test. Not in the way of I think you're thinking, but that's part of the mean value theorem. Rolle's theorem is just the endpoints are at the same level, at the same y. But the mean value, that's part of the mean value theorem, so you should know it, Davi. Where do I see the most students losing points on FRQs? Guys, you have to take your time and just make sure, don't forget the units. They make little mistakes, like for example, with polar, they forget the 1/2 to find the area. The units, the explanation. Those are the ones that I see the most. Ike, I think I'm saying that right, AIK. We were talking about it just right now, but I think polar is going to come up this year because it didn't come up in the last 2 years. So I think I made a video on a polar. Go back and just kind of look at it, just kind of, make sure that's in the back of your mind there. Yeah, guys, but yeah, you did need to get some sleep because there's no point in, cramming for all, 100 hours, and then you're so tired. Do I need to worry about Lagrange? Yes. That error bound, yes, you do. For the Taylor series, for Maclaurin, yeah. For Riemann sums, Daniel, make sure you know left hand, right hand, trapezoidal. That's what usually comes up. I haven't seen midpoint. Gosh, I think midpoint has been on there for years and years, over 20 years, I think. Biggest tip for the multiple choice for BC calculus, know your integrals, how to integrate, and know all your series tests. Yeah, do the one that you're confident in, like you like boom, 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 and then go back to the ones that are a little bit harder. Instead of putting 0/0 on FRQ, what are you supposed to say for L'Hopital? Well, for L'Hopital, you got to make sure you say it's 0/0. It's indeterminate. Okay, and as soon as you say that, we know that we have to use L'Hopital's rule. How often does inverse trig come up, Kevin? You know what? I don't know. Yeah, I think you might get a question or two. I'd say probably at least one, but it's not a big topic. Remember, the majority of the test, 30% of the test, almost a third of it, is integration. So make sure you know how to integrate and what it means too. All right, guys. So I don't want to make this video too long because I know you guys should go back to study or go back to bed. I know there's some of you on the West Coast, but just to close it up, okay, you're going to have 6 FRQs, okay? Rate accumulation. Gotta know that. Well, something comes in, something goes out. Your graph analysis, that's number 2. You gotta know that. That comes with the fundamental theorem of calculus. Table questions. You see a table right away, okay, Riemann sum, left hand, right hand, trapezoidal, okay? And then from there, I would say particle motion, okay? When does it change direction? When does it go farthest left, farthest right, okay? And then you have area volume. But for sure, and then the differential equation, that one's kind of, I don't know, sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't. And for BC, make sure you know Taylor series. Make sure you know that error bound. The first 4, how to write those first 4 series, and integral test, the limit comparison test. Let's see what else for BC. For BC, make sure you know, the Taylor series, your polar. I think based on just looking at it, guys, and some of you have said it, we're due for a polar on BC. It's due for a polar. That's what I would think. I don't know. Nobody knows. They might not, but I would think just based on the pattern, I would make sure I know polar. Riemann sum to integral notation, yes. You'll probably see it in multiple choice question, probably at least one. What's the easiest way to get free points on the FRQ if I don't know the answer to a question? Well, remember, part A of the question is usually easy and straightforward. You got the best thing to do is recognize what they're giving you. They're gonna give you one of those 6, so you got to look at it and say, okay, what do they give me? A graph analysis. Oh, okay. And look, okay, what are they asking for? So if you go to the other videos that I have and you look, okay, how do you do a graph analysis? What do you look for? Believe me, there's only so much they can ask. They get creative. They get creative in how they ask it, but it's still the same. Max, min, the total amount of something. You got to get the derivative, set it equal to 0, check the endpoints, all that good stuff. Optimization, no, you won't see optimization on there. No. Slow field, I hope they give you a slow field. Slow fields are pretty easy. I don't know, but if you see a slow field, you got to think, okay, they're gonna ask me probably the tangent line. They're probably gonna ask me the particular solution, okay, and they're probably gonna ask me to graph it, right? Graph the slow field somehow. Volume area, volume. If I see a volume area question, they're gonna ask me, you know what? They're gonna ask me area. They're probably gonna rotate it about the x or y axis. And the third one they're gonna ask is the cross sectional. It's probably gonna be either squares. Squares come up often. Semicircles I've seen. Let's see. Isosceles triangles. I think I've seen those. Yeah. Do the lines on the slope field have to be accurate? No, just accurate enough. What series test? Well, I know that they ask limit comparison test, the integral test. Make sure you know the ratio test. Okay, that's going to be on the Taylor series. Let's see. A lot of the other ones, you're going to see them on the multiple choice part. Which Maclaurin series should you memorize? E to the x, sine of x, cosine of x, ln of x, those four. I mean, you guys need to know those off the top of your head. Veer-Dobby, can you explain the volume of formulas and when it's rotated along the x-axis? Oh gosh, I can't. Just remember, Veer-Dobby, that just from the axis of rotation, you got to draw your line. That's from the axis of rotation. You have to draw it. But I have a video on that, and hopefully just take a quick look at it. I think it'll make more sense there. What percentage of AB is integration? 30%. A lot. Integration, integrals. Make sure you know your integrals. Make sure, yeah. In AB, what's the most complicated and the most common FRQ? I always have trouble with volume. Well, Ikushutashi, volume, they're going to ask you for area. They're going to ask you volume just from that axis of rotation. I would say go take a look at one of the videos that I put up, and if you just kind of focus on those things, okay, how to draw the axis of rotation, draw those lines, draw your radius, it shouldn't be too hard. What's the best guess if I don't know the answer on a multiple choice? Oof. I don't know. I would say try to eliminate the one that you absolutely don't. There used to be somebody that would also tell me that if you have 4 choices, the one that's kind of like looks like it doesn't belong as part of the other ones usually is the one. I don't know how true that is. What do I revise right now before the exam? Well, guys, it's not really revising; it's really fine tuning. Fine tune. What you're gonna look for on those FRQs, right? So for rate accumulation, let's take graph analysis. If you see a graph analysis, you think, okay, right off the top of your head, okay, they're gonna ask me for max min. They're gonna ask me for point of inflection. They're gonna ask me to find a particular value, like f of 3 or whatever, from the initial condition. They're probably gonna give me area, and I'm gonna need to find area underneath the curve. You see, those are the things that are in my head. If I see a table question, boom, okay, they're gonna ask me for rate of change. They're gonna ask me for Riemann sum somehow. Okay, they're probably gonna ask me, let's see, those table questions. Those table questions, sometimes they come up with particle motion, so then I would just kind of try to keep that in the back of my mind. For BC, as soon as I'm going to my Taylor series, either a power series or any other series, I'm thinking, okay, they're probably going to ask me, if I see a power series, they're going to ask me, you know what, write the first 4 terms. They're going to ask me, find the error bound. They're going to ask me to find a specific value. Okay. They're going to ask me for the ratio test. You see, all those little things that have those. So I'm studying the ratio test. I'm studying, uh, the, how to find the error bound. Those are the things that I'm focused on. So I'm fine tuning my focus. And you just got to do that with each different type of FRQ. You guys, your test is at 8 a.m. Make sure you get a good night's rest. Maybe a cup of coffee to kind of wake you up, right, to be, ready. And then just, do your best. I'll be praying for you guys, and hopefully that goes well. And you know what? I'm going to close it off, guys, because I don't want to keep you here. I know you guys are still studying. But, I'm going to close by praying for you guys. Calculator tips. You are going to survive, Rafael. Calculator tips. Make sure it's in radians. Okay. Make sure. I guess if you want to make sure you store the values into A and B. Don't round to the very end. Truncate to 3 decimal places. Yeah, store the first and second derivative. But guys, I don't want to keep you. I know you guys are still studying, especially if you're on the West Coast. But I want to pray for you guys and wish you guys all the best. I've been there. My students have been there, and I've seen great success, and I hope that you guys can continue that. But anyways, let me pray for you guys. Father, we come before you. I thank you for these students who are willing just to not only take a rigorous course, Lord, but just what they're doing. No, not everybody's meant to take these tough classes. Lord, I ask you to give them a good night's rest, give them vision. Lord, help them to just be able to see the exam, those key questions, those key things, Father, just to do well, Lord. I pray, Lord, please help them just to do well tomorrow. I know they're nervous. May your comfort, your peace, may they come upon them. And may they just do extremely, extremely, extremely well. I thank you, Father, and I ask you in Christ's name. Amen. All right, guys. I wish you guys all the best. Go get them. Get a good night's rest. And just do well, guys. I'll see you guys.